But moving on, this is a sticky one. Capital punishment. A lot of people will agree that some crimes are worthy of death. And if you don't think that, I would question the seriousness with which you're even thinking about the sort of crimes that would be meritorious of death. But where a lot of people disagree is whether or not the right to kill should be in the hands of the government. What do you think?
Well, this is a sticky one. I do think it should be in the hands of the government. I do think the government should have that ultimate authority because I think there are certain people in society that simply abdicate their easy for you to say, right? Their right to be a part of society and really even to exist. Because if you can say, well, okay, if you put them in prison, they have been taken, their participation in society has been taken from them. They got a life sentence. Okay, well, I get all that, but there's a function of government that says, if you do this, this will happen to you, which becomes a deterrent to other people doing it. Mm-hmm. And, I would argue just personally that the way we do capital punishment is not really a deterrent. And so it's kind of lost its practical application, I would say, because it's, 25 years between the act that merited capital punishment and when it's actually carried out, and there's a lot lost in between. Yeah,
that psychologically that doesn't work.
Yeah, psychologically.
People are not afraid of dying 25 years from now.
Yeah, psychologically it doesn't work. But I think from a biblical standpoint, if you go through the Bible illustrates the fact that the government does have that right, or you might even say a responsibility to do that. You could also apply the same principle to war, whereas individuals do not have a right to go out and kill people. Mm-hmm. Governments actually do have a right to go out and kill people. Mm-hmm. We have a right to bomb somewhere as a government entity because it is protecting society as a whole. So I think it's a similar principle in both situations.
Well, as I think you pointed out, a lot of people who are against capital punishment, their approach to those who commit such heinous crimes is, take them out of the situation, put them in prison somewhere so that they can't hurt anyone else, and that's really all it is about. It's about just protecting everyone else, and hey, maybe we can even rehabilitate them and that kind of thing. It has no concern for justice itself. And I'm going to refer again to the preamble to the Constitution. One of the things that this declared the role of government to be was to establish justice. And like morality or human flourishing or whatever, you do kind of have to appeal to a metaphysical reality to establish what justice means. I think that capital punishment, regardless of the deterrent effect, should be done because it is just. Now, that does not deal with the question of whether or not the government should be the one to do it. I think that it is established multiple places in Scripture that God has given the powers of retributive justice into the hands of man, going back to Genesis. But I see it affirmed here in this passage, which I'll read in Romans 13. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. So we see there's a legitimization of governing authority that's happening here. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval, for he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. So that word sword obviously implies violence, even killing. We see Paul here including the government's use of physical force in their rightful God-ordained role in society, and as something that we should submit to. I find in that statement a legitimization of capital punishment in the eyes of God.
Well, I think it goes back to some of what we said in the earlier conversation. There's a distinct role of an individual and a distinct role of government. And we as individuals don't really have the right to carry out judgment. God speaks about, us as individual Christians not even avenging those that do us wrong. That is the role of government. There is an innate sense within each of us. We love justice. We want to see justice carried out, generally for other people. But that is a responsibility that we have given over to government. If we take that upon ourselves, things turn in very chaotic and it becomes anarchy, right?
Yeah, we become vigilantes.
Yes, and so we need to leave that responsibility with the government that includes the possibility of the ultimate punishment, which is being taken out of society via death.